Okay, I think we'll get started. So if you're coming from the GNL project, I encourage you to look at the introductory video for this series to see if it's the right one for you. Okay, we're going to start the topic of inductive current. There's a lot that goes on here, and this is going to unfold over a couple of lectures. And so the main thing we know already is that if we have current running through a coil, then we produce a magnetic field. So we might be looking for, is there some symmetry there? Is there an opposite case where if we have a magnetic field running through a coil, we get current? Well, yes and no. If we have just a constant magnetic field in a current, nothing's going to happen. But if we have a changing magnetic field, that induces a current in the coil. Now, we're going to, as I said, this will unfold after a bit. We won't be able to satisfactorily see this by the end of this lecture yet. And in fact, it might even seem like we're showing something counter to that. So I'll point that out. But then when we talk about Lenz's law and Faraday's law and some other topics that will come into play, then this will ultimately close the loop on that. Okay, so basically what this is saying is if we have a coil and we change the magnetic field, say by moving this magnet up and down, we can induce a current, or by moving it side to side, we can induce a current. Okay, well, we're not going to get to that point yet, but let's look at the component pieces in all of this, and it will seem like we're taking a little bit of a sidestep. Instead of changing the magnetic field for the moment, let's keep the magnetic field constant and just consider the case of pulling a wire of length L through that magnetic field. Now, let's use our right-hand rule here now. And if we think about the positive charge carrier, which again, in a metal, the electrons are the charge carriers, but we can think about the positive as just the electrons leaving that in this cascade, and the positive charge moves. So even though in the metal the protons are held fixed, the positive charges are held fixed, the electrons move, we can still think of these as positive charge carriers and negative charge carriers. Okay, so let's think about the positive charge carrier in this case. We are going to have this wire pointing straight up and down, and the magnetic field will be going into the board here. So we're going to pull this in this direction with the velocity v. So our thumb is velocity, our pointer finger goes into the board, that's magnetic field, and then our middle finger points the direction of the force. So that's going to say the positive charge carriers are going to feel a force going to this end of the wire, and because we also have negative charge carriers, the electrons, they will go in the opposite direction. So they're opposite the right-hand rule here. So they will go downward, and we've created a separation of charge, right, which is much like a parallel plate capacitor. And so we expect there's an electric field produced inside this metal as it moves across because of the difference in the charge carriers, positive on top, negative on the bottom here. Okay, well, we can think about the force that we talked about last time, and that's going to be the charge. So the force on any given charge will be the charge times the velocity. So that's the velocity which we're pulling this wire, and then the strength of the field here going into the board. So that's going to be our magnetic force that's driving this charge upward. Okay. Well, when this separates, we are going to get an electrostatic force that's equal to Q times the field that's produced. So this is just coming out of what we've learned about for parallel plate capacitors. And that's going to want to pull this charge down, right? So they're going to be opposing each other. So as we pull this through, we'll come to this equilibrium where we create an electric field that will produce an electric force that exactly counters the magnetic force. Otherwise, these will just keep accelerating upward. So we reach this equilibrium where for the positive charge carrier, we have the magnetic field in one direction, the electric field equal and opposite in the other direction. The negative charge carriers, this would be just flipped upside down. Okay. So as we pull this, we can separate charge. Okay, well, we can think of a separated charge here as a battery, because what is a battery doing? It has a positive end and a negative end. This wire has a positive end and a negative end. So let's set up a fancy system here where we have this U shape with some kind of load here, and we can slide with contact, metal contact between the metals. We can slide this rod this way and this way. So as we slide this rod this way, that's exactly what we talked about in detail down here. So that means we're going to get a positive charge and a negative charge over here. Well, these electrons can then move around this loop and find their counter positive charge. So this is like a battery. And because this is moving and always moving these charges, it really is like a battery. It's always producing extra electrons down here and extra positive charges up here. And so we can sustain a flow through here. Okay. Now, we can, here we talked about forces and fields, right? We know there's a connection then between potential energy and then for fields, the electrostatic potential. So let's look at the electrostatic potential here. So this is electrostatic potential. In this case, we often refer to it as electromotive force. We said these are all synonymous. Just the setting kind of decides what we're using here. So we'll use electromotive force. We'll use this capital fancy E here instead of a V for our electromotive force. And this is going to be then dependent, it's going to depend on the magnetic field, the length of this wire, and the velocity, as we might expect from the previous lectures. Okay. Well, we've got this voltage, we've got a resistance, so therefore Ohm's law comes into play, and we can get a current. So this is the actual current, electrons flowing this way, conventional current going this way. And so we just take the voltage divided by the resistance. Okay. All right, so we have this important relationship for this type of a setup. Okay, well, the loop itself, since there's current going in this loop, it creates a magnetic field, and that gives rise to a counter force to this. And that's one of the key ideas. As we pull this way, right, we generate this current this way, it's producing a counter force that is equal to the current times how strong the magnetic field is. That's referring to this magnetic field. And we generate this counter force. So that's going to be trying to pull in this direction as we have a pulling force, whatever it is, our pulling force in that direction. So if we're moving at a constant velocity, we know our free body diagram would have to be zero, vector add to zero. We have a pulling force in this direction. We have a counter force in that direction. And this is the basis for magnetic braking. So in certain rail systems and stuff, you have magnetic brakes. So we can induce a magnetic force in the opposite direction of our motion, and that results in braking. Now, we can now substitute in what we got here from Ohm's law, and we get a new expression for the force. We would expect it to depend on velocity, which it does. We don't see that in here, but it's hiding in the formula for the current. And then we would expect it to depend on the resistance, the magnetic field, and the length. Now, we can see now explicitly how this comes in as linear in velocity and then quadratic in magnetic field and length here, and then linear in inverse linear in resistance. Okay, so this is one step in the process. Important now to practice some problems using this kind of a setup and understanding how this works. And then just as a bit of foreshadowing, we're not this field has been constant this whole time. So what is it? How does it has to do with a changing magnetic field? Well, let's look at this whole loop in its entirety and what it's experiencing. As this is moving, more of the magnetic field is inside the loop than outside the loop as this is moving this way. And that's going to be important coming up. So that's a relationship to the changing field, which we haven't explicitly brought out yet. Okay, well, let's work some examples. So we have a 20 centimeter long rod here. The rails are, the whole system has 0.95 ohms of resistance, and we're using a constant force to counter this magnetic force. We're pulling this at a constant 5 meters per second. So our free body diagram should be add vectorially to 0. So we should have a free body diagram that looks like this. The magnetic field is 2.1 Tesla. What's the current and what's the force? Okay, pretty straightforward. We have the formulas. So if we plug in our numbers, and you could check this, see if I made a mistake. Current, we should get amps, of course. And so we get 2.76 amps if we plug in the numbers that were given. And then the magnetic force is this coming from here. We could also have just used this equation directly, coming from here, and we get 1.45 newtons. So check that yourself, see if I made a mistake there. Okay, we're going to close this with just a quick overview of generators. We're not going to derive this equation. I'm just going to give it to you, but it is an important example, and it also shows this symmetry that is happening all the time. We had just talked about motors last lecture. Well, a generator is basically the inverse of a motor. So let's set that up here. Instead of a battery, we're going to have a load now, and this is going to be hooked up to this loop that's on this bushing and axle so that it can turn. But now we're going to attach that axle to another motor, like a gasoline powered motor, and that's just going to spin this loop, right? So we had for the motor, the loop spun, and then we could harness that angular momentum on that, or that angular motion on that axle, and do work with that. Now we're doing work on the system. We are using an external motor to spin the axle inside this magnetic field. And so this loop is experiencing a change of magnetic field. Now again, this seems a little not quite right based with up here, but how is it feeling that field? The field is like this, and as that spins through, the loop has different amount of magnetic field going through the loop itself, and that's the important idea here. And we'll talk much more about that next lecture in particular. We talk about Lenz's law. Okay, so the formula for this just tells on a couple of things that make some sense. How fast the a gasoline power motor is turning the loop. So we're going to be proportional to the frequency, the area of the loop, so how much of that loop can capture that magnetic field, and then the magnetic field itself. And that's going to be the magnitude of this voltage that's produced when we turn the motor. Now, that's going to depend on where that loop is over time. So there's going to be a sinusoidal component to that as that oscillates around or spins around. And so we're going to actually get an AC current here. So if we were to plot the voltage, we'd get an AC voltage. So we get a plus E naught down to a minus E naught. And so this E naught is the magnitude of this, and then it is what we call an alternating current. We call it alternating current. We haven't talked about current yet, but alternating voltage. Where would that current be coming in? Well, this is producing a voltage, so that can run through the load. So the current will go this way, this way, this way, this way, and that's where we get AC, or alternating current, from. Okay, let's do a quick example. The frequency is important here. So if we really spin it fast, obviously that's going to give us more of a voltage, and that plays a big role. So if we spin at 100 hertz and we got a 0.5 square meter loop, and the magnetic field is 1.5 Tesla, then we already can produce, if you plug in these numbers here, and you can check this, 471 volts. So easy to produce voltage this way, and this is an important sort of opposite of a motor. We have motors and we have generators, so they're connected in this way. All right, so I've said this many times, probably repeating myself here, but this is the first step in a couple of topics here now that we'll cover over the next few days that will bring all this together.